Hot take alert. I miss the seasonal model. Before you bring out your pitchforks, everybody, hear me out. I don't miss everything in the old seasonal model, but I miss it in comparison to what we have now. In the old seasonal model, we at least had a reason to log in every week. Compared to now with the portal, we have no reason to log in basically at all. I think Bungie saw our criticisms of the old seasonal model, and instead of keeping the good parts and removing the bad, they just threw the whole thing out and they replaced it with the portal and what we have now. And that was, I think, a major mistake, because now what happens every weekly reset? Basically nothing, but Eververse is loaded with crazy new cosmetics, guys. Buy. Spend all that cash and fill Bungie's pockets. I think we need to return to form in a sense, reverse this change and focus on the portal back to something a little different, fix up the seasonal model so that we have the good parts and none of the old bad things we didn't like, and give players a reason to actually log in every single week. And so in this video, that's what I'm gonna be talking about, the good parts of the seasonal model and why they should come back. But first, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Dankke and welcome back to another YouTube video. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so I'd greatly appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button down below. We're super close and I'm sure we can reach this goal, so I'd greatly appreciate your support. But let's get into the discussion. So before we had this new portal system, we had the old seasonal model of the game, where there would either be 4 or 3 seasons that would release with a good amount of content and weekly story that players could consume. But overall, the seasonal model had a lot of mixed opinions. Some people hated it and some people liked it. And some people were in between, like myself, where I saw the potential of the seasonal model and the good parts that could really be highlighted to bring the system up, but they were really being weighed down by some of the bad negative parts. So to start off, let's talk about the bad of the seasonal model before we talk about the good. And one of the major things that people hated about the seasonal model was the drip fed content, where a lot of the seasonal story and seasonal activities were locked week to week. You would log in, do the activity, speak to a holo projector, and then they would tell you to tune in next week, and trust me, something good will happen, but a lot of times it would be the same thing over and over again. But I think the problem with the drip fed content is not the drip feeding itself, but the content itself. Let me give you an example. In the year of the final shape, when Bungie was trying out the episodic model, a lot of players were complaining about time gating in episode echoes. It was really frustrating. You would just go do an activity, listen to a holo projector, and then log off until next week. Pretty boring stuff. And so Bungie, in response to this criticism, removed time-gated content from episode Revenant. But that didn't go over well either. By removing the drip feeding, it really just highlighted how little content Revenant had to offer. You would log in on Act 1 and then play through all the story and content in 1 hour. And then Act 2 would come out and the same thing would happen. You would play through it all in an hour. And guess what? Nobody liked that either, because you would log in, do your hour of story for the month, and then you had basically nothing else to do until next month. And so the problem here obviously wasn't the drip feeding, it was the lack of content. And when a seasonal story and seasonal content is actually good, criticism over drip feeding isn't really present. I mean, think about Heresy. They drip fed the story and the content in that episode, but a lot of people loved Heresy. That's because the story was good, the content was good, the weapons and loot was good, the progression was good. And so people didn't really care about the drip feeding because you didn't really notice it, because you were so focused on grinding the activities and the gear that you didn't even notice that the content was drip fed, because the content was good. And so the next problem we have to talk about the seasonal model is that the quality of the content was pretty inconsistent. And usually there were 3 types of seasons that would release in a year. There was the not so good, pretty bad one, the mid-tier season, and then the very good one of the year. And so I think Bungie had this problem of making consistent content because they would really heavily focus their resources on the season that came before the big expansion release, because they really wanted players to be hooked on the game so that they would buy that expansion right after that season ended. And so as a result, it made all the other seasons of the year feel really bad. And so I think if Bungie were to return to the old seasonal model, they would really need to try and make every single season of the year just as good as that final season, which really brought all the juice and the content. And so now let's talk about the good of the seasonal model, which I think all of us can agree on is a reason to log on. Right now, in the game, there's not a lot to do. You log on, do your power level. Once you get your tier 5s, or you quit because the grind is too annoying and too frustrating, you just log off and you wait until something new comes out, but it's just not really worth logging on for. all these events and stuff, it's just not really worth the grind considering the rest of the game isn't that fun to play. But back in the seasonal model, there was actually story present in the game. Compare that to when Ash and Iron came out, you had one mission and then this rest of the story is just missing. And when you compare that to the seasonal model, the story was actually present. Even if it wasn't always told in the best and most engaging way, you were at least engaging with the story and evolving the universe of Destiny. I think Heresy was one of the best seasons ever created because it kind of took all the feedback we gave towards the seasonal model and actually implemented it in a pretty good way. You would go into your story mission and interact with the characters in the story mission. You wouldn't have to leave, go back to the helm, and speak to a holoprojector. You would be inside the mission, actually engaging with the characters. And that's what Bungie needs to keep doing going forward. All of our criticisms towards the seasonal model were these minor things that just needed to be tweaked, and Heresy tweaked it in just the right way. Obviously, it wasn't perfect. Things could still be better, right? I'm not saying Heresy is the peak and it'll never get better. Obviously, we should get better, and we should try and strive for better and better content. But Heresy really showed the potential the seasonal model, or I guess the episodic model, could have. But Bungie, instead of striking at this opportunity of the success of Heresy, they decided to just throw it all away for the portal. And that's where Bungie really messed up, because now there's no reason to log on at all. An update to the Eververse store is not content. Sure, that Taken armor set's pretty cool, but I'm not dropping 20 doubloons on that thing. Solo ops is not content. There's no story, there's no reason, there's no anything. That doesn't make me want to play. A part of the reason I really cared about Destiny all these years is for the story. The content was fun, the game was fun, but the story was a major factor into why I logged into the game. And now the story isn't present, the content is slop, and the grind is overwhelming. And so the purpose of this video is not to say we need to go back to exactly where we were before Edge of Fate. Completely rework everything, throw out the portal, it's done. No. I think the problem mainly is that Bungie is looking at the portal as the game when the portal should just be a feature. You know, another one of the criticisms of the seasonal model was that the content of the season would be sunset at the end of the year. And that was a problem because some of the content was really, really good. But the portal proposes a solution to this problem where you can take that seasonal content and throw it in the portal. And you can still keep it relevant by allowing people to level or grind gear through these activities. But when you throw out the seasonal model and you just replace it with the portal, that's where things went wrong. And so I think going forward, Bungie should find a way to combine the positives of the old seasonal model and the positives of the portal and make that into the game, because there's some aspects of the portal that are good and there were aspects of the seasonal model that were good, but you can't just throw away one and replace it with the other. They need to work in tandem because I feel like both systems complete each other in a way. But that's all for me, guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, I'd greatly appreciate it if you hit the like button and subscribed. But that's all for me, guys, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your week. Peace out.